Before we move on from the minor jazz blues progression, I know, thank God, right? Which we've covered in the previous 3 lessons, I would like to offer one more sample solo, a composed solo. Like the previous lesson, it's 2 12-bar choruses in the key of E minor, played over a medium up-tempo swing groove. So I'll play it at the full tempo, and then I'll slow it down and play it again with the track, and then we'll break it down for you. And this one is played over the set of very busy chord changes that I introduced a couple lessons back, which it was figure 2 in the Guitar World January 2017 issue. And it features just about every bar features 2 chord changes, it's on beats 1 and 3. It's like a minor blues on steroids. So, you could think that, wow, gee, something like that is a little kind of confining and dictatorial, and that it says you have to acknowledge all these things, you have to hug the navigational buoys, as it were. But, you could just play E minor pentatonic, E blues licks, like Stevie Ray Vaughan would do over like a pseudo minor jazz blues. But I think showing you something like this is ultimately a little more musically compelling and interesting, show you how to really get inside the changes. Ultimate goal, I think, is to be able to describe chord changes melodically with single note melodies, and it sounds really great when you're playing with just a bass player and drummer, or even a cappella by yourself, you're conveying the harmony, melody, and rhythm. So without further ado, here is the solo. Okay, as a review, the chord changes I'm playing over, it's this progression. E minor 9, C sharp minor 7 flat 5, F sharp minor 7 flat 5, B 7 sharp 5, E minor 9. Okay, that's the first 4 bars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. And it goes B minor 7 flat 5, E 7 flat 9 to A minor 9. Okay, that's a 2-5 to the 4 chord, A minor 7. And then F sharp minor 7 flat 5 again, B 7 sharp 5 again, and then we go through the cycle of fifths. This is kind of cool. We go E minor 9, A 13, D 9, G 13, C 9, B 7 sharp 9, and I do this sharp 5, sharp 9, and then the last 2 bars, this is bars 11 and 12, we have this turnaround. E minor 6 9, C sharp 7 sharp 9 sharp 5. I'm substituting the sharp 9. F sharp 7 sharp 5 sharp 9, B 7 sharp 9 sharp 5. Instead of going like I did in the first 4 bars, I'm going, it adds more tension having this. Okay, then the progression just repeats again. So it's the same thing played twice. Okay, so I'm starting out here on the and of beat 4 with a downstroke. So then my first beat on the E minor 9 chord on the downbeat of bar 1 is an upstroke. I'm doing this because I carefully kind of thought out my pick strokes and string crosses. So I'm going. Okay, so that's outlining the E minor 9, C sharp minor 7 flat 5 change. That's the 5th of E, right? Okay, then that's the root of C sharp minor 7 flat 5. You know, I've been saying this for a while now. Target the 3rd, 7th, or 5th, you know, anything but the root. But it's okay to hit the root, man. Sometimes, you know, riding out on the root is great, especially if it's a real straight ahead type of blues. No one will fault you for hitting a root. You just don't want to keep following the root because then you create parallel octaves with the bass. But for minor 7 flat 5 chords, a lot of times it sounds fine to go, you know, just starting on the root. So I'm going. Okay, that's in bars 2 and 3 over the F sharp minor 7 flat 5 chord. I'm actually kind of thinking of it as F sharp 7 sharp 9, which, as I showed you a minute ago, I'm using later on as a substitution. And then that little 16th note triplet, that's like a bebop rhythmic phrasing device. Hammer pull. And that is a hammer on from nowhere, a phrase coined by Eddie Van Halen, where you're just tapping with the fret hand. Yeah, I could have picked that note. But at the tempo I'm playing it at, it just kind of felt more comfortable to just, you know, let the pick hand rest for a second. And, you know, it just goes by real quick. It doesn't really matter, as long as it's articulated. Okay? That's over the B7 sharp 5. Remember, with a 5 chord, I'm always saying how you want to tonicize. Okay, that's in bar 3 over the E minor 9. Now going into this in bar 4 over this B minor 7 flat 5, E7 flat 9 to A minor 7. That's, I mentioned, the 2, 5 to the 4 chord. Over minor 7 flat 5 chords, by the way, your options, your good options are to use obviously the arpeggio of that same chord, or you can use the Locrian mode. And in this case, that is the 7th mode of the C major scale. So you're just playing a C major scale, starting on B. And that'll work beautifully over a minor 7 flat 5 chord. So, but interestingly, I'm using the C sharp note here. Instead of going, the C would be in B Locrian, right? B Locrian. But it just felt good to go, make that a half step. And then targeting the 3rd of E7 flat 9. So here I targeted the 3rd of B minor 7 flat 5. And then you get the flat 5 in there. The 7th resolving to the 3rd of E7. Flat 9 of E7. And then the 5th of A minor. So these are really active note choices here. Go right down, you know, the A Dorian mode. And then over this. Targeting 3rd. You can almost make a chord solo out of it, right? Then a chromatic walk up to going into bar 7. Okay, that's kind of a funky, interesting sounding thing. I go from this minor 7th arpeggio, and then, but I'm using a passing tone, like the sharp raised 9th. You know, that gives it like a bluesy quality. And notice the contour, ba-doo, ba-boo, ba-boo, beep. That's kind of an interesting contour. I could have just gone, but I kind of ran out of room. So what I did instead was just take the same idea and then drop it down an octave. So. And I did a pull off. And then over the C9 chord, the B7 sharp 9, I just did this neat tritone thing. Give it a little attitude, some finger vibrato there. And then over the turnaround, bars 11 and 12, where I go. I went kind of quirky sounding, right? Because of the the sparse rhythms with the rests thrown in, and also the those tritone intervals. And that leads us into our second chorus, beginning at bar 13. Here I kind of take a different approach. It's more straight up streams of eighth notes, almost all the way through to the end. But I'm starting on an upstroke here. Again, carefully arranged so that my string choruses are easy as possible to play. Nothing's easy, right? But try to make it as easy as possible. That's on E. I'm starting on the root. Like I said, it's okay to start on the root sometimes. And that's like an E minor arpeggio again, but when you play it over C sharp minus 7 flat 5, you're very clearly outlining that chord, because what that is, C sharp minus 7 flat 5 is essentially E minor over C sharp. You know, you think of any minor 7 flat 5 chord as being a minor triad, a minor third up. So E minor, you play that over C sharp bass note, you get that sound. So, and then over the F sharp minor 7 flat 5 in bar 14. And then, see, I'm thinking chords, man. I'm thinking, you know, these voice leading upper structure chord tones. Now, I start this long chain of what's called constant structure shapes, and it's like a minor add 9 shape. If you look at it in isolation, it would be C minor add 9. But over B7 sharp 9, it gives you that sharp 5, the third, the sharp 9, the flat 9. And then I move that down a half step over E minor 9. That shape works nicely over E. It's giving you the 9th, the minor 7th, the 6th, the 4th, which live in E Dorian. And then that same shape works beautifully up here, because then you're going 5th, the 9th, the root. And here it truly is a minor add 9. Backing up a little bit here, so we have. And I decided to keep that going. How can I fit that over the other chords? So over the B minor 7 flat 5, E7 flat 9, A minor 7 in bar 16, I went. See, it works great. Over the B minor 7 flat 5, this shape gives you the minor 7th, the flat 5, right? The 4th, which actually sounds good, and then the minor 3rd. And then move that shape up 3 frets, a minor 3rd, over E7 flat 9. That's giving you that kind of altered. And then in bar 17, we go to A minor 9. I just shift that down. In the same way that earlier we went over E minor. Now over A minor, we're going, it's A Dorian, right? And then coming down the home stretch here, bar 18, I could have just stayed on this over the F sharp minor 7 flat 5, because that works the same way. You know, you play the minor arpeggio, a minor third up from the root, or the minor add 9 arpeggio. Clearly outlines F sharp minor 7 flat 5, but I decided to make it different. Instead of playing the same thing, instead of going, I wanted to go down, so I went. So by moving that down 2 frets to what's like a G minor add 9 shape, that works over the F sharp altered dominant, 7 sharp 9 with the sharp 5 on top. So it creates even more tension. I mentioned earlier in the turnaround changes, instead of just playing, I went E minor 6. So you're kind of like pushing the envelope here with harmony. And then I move on, because too much of a good thing is too much of a good thing, right? So I take that motif pretty far. By the way, when I'm doing that, I'm palm muting the lower strings. I'm clearly letting the notes on the top 3 strings ring, maybe muting the G string a little bit, but doing a noise suppression duty on the low strings. Okay, then coming down home stretch here in bar 19. kind of outlining that progression the same way earlier we went. But now I'm going. Those are just dominant seventh or dominant ninth arpeggios. Going after the strong chord tones, you know, it's always challenging. You could think, I mentioned earlier, that it's a little oppressive because it's like forcing you to play over that, but you know, you could just play blues licks in E minor. So you always have that option. These notes are well picked. And then coming down home stretch, finally, I know I said that twice, but bar 21. Going after the active chord tones over C9 in bar 21. That's a chromatic line, right? Obviously, starting on the third, walking up to the fifth. And then a double pull off using that 16th note rhythm. Ba ba doo be lia ba ba bum. Another common bebop jazz phrasing device. And then I got the seventh, walking down from C7 to B7. And here I'm hitting the third of B7, right? Finger slide. And then bar 23 is the final turnaround. A hammer on up to the ninth of E minor 6/9. And then a little shake. And a kind of a sinewy, snake charmer-ish type of chromatic pull-off slide down to the major 7 there, D sharp. Now you're thinking, well, major 7, is that okay to do over a minor 6/9 chord? Yeah, because minor 6/9 could either be in E Dorian or E melodic minor. You know, the 6 is common, and the minor third, obviously, in the ninth, and the fifth, and the root are all common to, it could be E Dorian, or it could be E melodic minor. So, get that spooky sounding chord there, and you're done.